In about a minute, we're going to be kicking off with some ICA tips and tricks. We've got Diego, Kevin, Jeff, and David. If you have questions for their tips and tricks, please put them into the chat. We will try to get to them. If not, someone might get back to you in the chat. But let's bring all those people up to the front. And who is going to be doing their tip or trick? Hey, Diego.
Hey, Luke, how are you?
Fantastic, fantastic.
Okay, so let me share resolve. Okay. Okay, my tip is actually really fast. It's in the 17 in resolve. And it looks like, okay. So it's about balancing. It's about balancing images and so on. So as you probably guys know, one of the best like techniques to balance images is like when you have the primary bars and you look at the RGB parade and you balance all the three colors and you get the right balance. This is actually really good. But in some cases, you are in a panel, in a color panel, and in a panel is hard or it's actually not so fast, like to go to the keyboard or to go to the color bars part and try to match this. So what you do in the panel is you try to balance them with color wheels. And in some way you try it, but the problem is that in the color wheels, you have one language, you have HSL, and in the primary bars, you have RGB. So it's like I'm speaking Chinese and the other is speaking, I don't know, Portuguese. They are different languages, really different languages. So in that case, what you can do is you can switch to the Vectorscope. And in the Vectorscope, like the rule is like, okay, you go to the opposite or to the contrary color and you balance the image. And you find like a good point. But in this case, in this image, I have my raster or my signal in the middle, but it's still not balanced. And the reason is that, you know, all of you guys know that an image has three different zones, like zones. So and you say, probably you're thinking, okay, so how I can like balance like using leaf, gamma, gain, and using just one Vectorscope. The tip is, okay, actually two tips in one. The first one is that you can like make this bigger. And if you want this even more bigger, like with, I don't know, with 12 scopes, you just need to increase the size of here and you can have like many scopes. You know, I tried to make this all the time and I couldn't figure it out, but all you need to do is to increase the size. Okay, that one is the smallest tip. I will leave this in 4, but in this case, what I will do is I need 3 Vectorscope, every one per each zone. And every one, for example, this one is going to refer to the low. This one is going to refer to the mid. This one is going to refer to the height. And probably I can have one just for the offset. So all I need to do is go or put this to the center. Here, in the center. Now this one to the center. And now the gain. And as you notice here, wait. Okay, I got so far. I balance my image, moving like leaf, gamma, gain, using the Vectorscope of the low, the Vectorscope of the mids, of the Vectorscope of the in the highlights to the center, and it was actually really fast. Yes, all to the center. And there you go. So that's 2 tips in one, really fast. So who's next?
That was awesome.
Go next. That one.
I can go next if you need.
Yeah, David, you're on deck.
All right. Okay. So for the last 8 years or so, we've spent a lot of time building a lot of different systems for a lot of people. And one of the things that we often come across is people will turn around and say, well, I don't think our system's working as well as when we first had it. Or, you know, you're running Resolve 16 or Resolve 17 and it doesn't run as fast as it did with Resolve 15. So can you tell us the reasons for that and what can we do to prove that our system is still running the speed? Well, back in about 2014, I think it was, Sasha Haber came up with this thing called the standard candle test, which was basically a different, it was just a project with lots of different color correction or GPU intensive processes that you could add into the clip. And you can run these and tell what the performance of your system was. And if it had changed, as long as you noted that originally, you could be able to compare your current response or current performance with that of a system, you know, a couple of years ago, and make sure you're still working well. I mean, we all keep adding programs onto our computers, and occasionally you add a program that causes something somewhere to slow down. So what I was going to do was to quickly go through, explain about that. First of all, there's some things in the newer versions of Resolve you need to turn off, because you won't get an accurate result if you don't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen now, and you should see this. I think a lot of people have seen this image before. This information, or the standard candle test, is available on the Yhama game website. But here at Color Scene, we've kind of modified it because it started off as an HD resolution image and so forth, and an HD project. But over the years, all the systems would run at real time with that. But so what this is, if you haven't seen this before, is the fact that you have several different corrections. So if you right-click on the thumbnail, you can see you can select different quantities of nodes, and each one of these is a blur node. And blur always used to be, this was developed before there was things like noise reduction in Resolve, which uses a lot of the GPU performance. So what you could do is you can bring this up, and then you just hit the play button and see how fast it runs. And you can see up here on the speed, it's running at 24 frames a second. And you can keep adding, if you, again, sorry, it's the wrong one. If you right mouse click on this, you can go now to 30 nodes. And these are all blur nodes, each one of these. That's why the image is looking pretty awful. Don't worry about that, because that's the way it normally goes. But now you can see this here is using 30 blur nodes. And now my system is starting to slow down. It's down to 15 frames a second. And this is a 4K, project that we're working in. So the first thing to do if you're going to be doing this is you set up your project. So if you go into here, you'll notice that the project is set up for 4K, and I'm displaying it here in 4K as well. So once we've done that, then we will, the second thing we need to do, and this is really important, is you need to go into your Resolve preferences. And if you go to the system here, you can see what you're using as GPUs. And also you can make sure, those of you with only 2 GPUs, make sure you've got this selected that turns on the the display GPU to do Resolve compute as well. So make sure this is turned off. This is quite often when you build a system and just install the software, this doesn't get turned on. So you lose a lot of the performance. So that's another thing. And then the third thing you want to do is to go to Playback Settings. Now this is where the standard of the default is set up for this to be automatic. And what this means that if you're running an image or a project which won't play in real time, it will automatically play at a lower resolution, or a lower, if it's a red file, for example, it will not play that at full res premium, it will play it at sort of half res good, or something that can play back at close to real time. So it's not giving you an accurate, if you use that, if you leave that switched on, you won't get an accurate display of your performance. So what I always do is I turn this off altogether. So this is totally disabled. You have to shut Resolve down and restart it again once you've changed these, because it won't affect the current project. You have to restart the project, or restart Resolve and then bring up the project again. And then you can go through and see what kind of performance you're getting. And as you can see on here, We're now running at something like 20 frames a second. And then if I go up to 66 blur nodes, these are 66 blur nodes at 4K. You can see that we're now down to around about 7. I think this is going to get to about 8 in a minute. Now, what you will find is that this quite often will start off at maybe, you know, at some speed, it could be 8 or 9. But as your GPUs warm up, they will actually start to reduce the clock rate of the GPU because it starts to get hot. And to stop the GPU getting overheating and effectively frying itself, the software will, or the Resolve software doesn't, but the GPU software will downclock the GPU to make sure it doesn't overheat. But so you can see the different performance you got here. And so you can go through and record each of these. And then you've got some others that are more to test things like the noise reduction modes here. And then you've got the spatial noise reduction and so forth. So you can go through and make a note of all of these. But once you've done that, we actually have a slight modification to this, because now what we do is we go to timeline 2. And these are all red files. And the difference is that the GPU is used for a lot of the color correction processes. But for red decoding, up to the last, I don't know, up to I think Resolve 16, this was always done in a CPU. The decompression was always done in the CPU. And so this always used to be a good test of your CPU performance. And so if you play some of these, this is a dual 10-core system. And as you can see, these are this is a 4K file. These are all downloaded from the Red website. And so you can go and find those. But you can see here we've got one this is only playing back at something like, what, 8 or 9 frames a second. And again, you need to go back into your settings and go to your camera raw, and then we'd come down here and select red, and make sure you've got full res premium selected, because that will give you an accurate result here of your performance. But once you've got all of this and you've taken these down, then the next thing you could do, and I think this is a question for Kevin and Warren, and that is, we could make a place available on the website for everybody to record their performance. And then that would mean that they could come to the website and just say, this is the kind of performance I'd expect if I got a particular machine. And I'll show you what that looks like. If we come to my sheet, how do I change my screen sharing?
David, I'm gonna give you another minute here, and I'm gonna pass it off.
Right. Okay. I'm taking too long. I know, but there's one thing I wanted to show you, and that's this here. So this is something we've been doing at Color Scene for years. Well, not years. I mean, since, look, you can see there's a V12 timeline here, and this is Sasha Habaz's system back in 2000. I think this is about 2014. Or maybe earlier, 2012, because look, this is using 3 GTX 680s. So, you know, we have the history for a lot of the systems and for the different systems. And we've got the customers' names up here, whereby we can go back and bring up any one of these systems and tell you exactly what the performance was of that system. And so we can do direct comparisons to make sure that system is still running correctly. And then if we go to here, this is our latest page of this, and this is what I would suggest we would put on the website. And so you can see here we've got the latest Mac Pros with 2 Radeon GPUs and the kind of performance that you get here from those. And then you're coming back here to things like this one here, where you've got a 10-core Dell computer using 2 RTX Titans, and you can compare the performance. So I was going to leave this up to Kevin and Warren if they wanted to put on the website, but I think it'd be really useful for all the colorists if they could go to this page and then just be able to see exactly what equipment they're using, and you'd know before you go out and buy a system what kind of a performance you can expect.
Do you have this listed anywhere on your personal website that people can go check out, or?
Not yet, not yet. It's something that we will be doing, but it was something we just used for ourselves up to now, but I think it's something that would be useful for the community as well.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
I agree, David. I think if you're
Nice.
willing to share it, then either the ICA or even CSI should make that available. And as you say, we should use it as a resource to collect data as well. To get as many systems listed.
Cool. Anyway, there we go. That's all I've got to say
Thanks, David. Much
for
appreciated.
the time being.
Jeff, I'm gonna pass it to you.
Outstanding. You know, Diego, when you went to show the scope piece, I was scared you were going to do my tip.
Yeah.
So let me do a share screen, because I'm going to bring up my resolve screen. All right, everybody, we can see it pretty decently. I love the fact that you brought this up with the 9. I think that's phenomenal. Oh, where did my scopes just go? Hold on a second. Come on, there they are. Let me pop that back out. So I've kind of set mine up a little bit the way you had yours set up. I love, and I mean, I'm now going to teach. This is how good I think you just showed me. I'm going to definitely be teaching things like thinking in the Vectorscopes, different low, mids, and highs. But I don't know if you saw this was added under the 3 dots here, display qualifier focus. So I love when software changes to go and dig into the corners. Watch this. With display qualifier focus, when I mouse over my image, my eyedropper is showing me exactly what on the scope sits under my eyedropper. Which means that if I'm trying to sit back and understand what's going on, what thing I want to adjust, let me pull that over. You can see as I mouse through this, exactly what item on any scope. And so when I bring up the 9 scope, look at how much information it's helping me figure out my images. How'd I do there, Diego? Was that one nice?
Yeah.
That one was
Nice.
for you, man. That one was for you. You showed me something great about scopes. I hope I showed you something cool. I want to do a couple others like that. I tend to be a keyboard jockey too often, and it has to do with teaching, is that I end up doing a lot of work teaching. So I'm not going to have you worry about how I brought up the keyboard so fast, but I'm going to tell you the key I remove from every student's keyboard, from every keyboard I'm ever using, is quit. And the reason I remove it is I never accidentally, in mashing keyboard choices, want to quit my software. I don't know. I get it. I get why it's in there, but it breaks my heart that we don't customize our keyboards like that. And as I was digging for keyboards, I want you to see, and that wasn't necessarily a 17 feature that, but that was one that I came across. Another one that, yeah, I'm sorry. Henry had his audio on. I want to show you one more like that I found. I want you to see that your qualifier is now available. And I've mapped my qualifier to F1. Let me keep my changes here. Cancel, save my changes. Warren, years ago, I went and I was pointing out that we, for using power windows, could use Shift tilde to turn off the Windows visibility. That was one I found in digging deep, and I think I don't use that. It's really Shift accent aigu. I don't use it as much as I would in 17 for what I'm about to show you. Now, from a color point of view, I just want you to see why it's so important to turn those off. When I do something fairly radical in a vignette or any other power window, I like the edges of it to be hard. I like it to be really hard. Turn off the power window's shape. And I'm going to use that Shift tilde, and then I'm going to roll out the softness till my brain can't see the edges. Now that's very much the way I've worked and worked for years. I find it so just a really great instinctual way to work with power windows is to be able to see that and make it disappear. But as I said, these items here are now available to the keyboard, and I can't tell you how many times I've been working and the wrong one of them is up. What I'd like you to see here, and it's really small, so I'm just going to make it a little bit larger as I toggle it from the keyboard. I'd like you to see that I've mapped to my keyboard to F1 and F2. Oh, it's not changing it because of this screen overlay. Can you see on my screen that the eyedropper and the power windows are changing because I'm tapping on the keyboard? I'm just in love with the fact that those items, qualifier and power window, are the ones that I've been dying for years to have access to from the keyboard. How'd I do with that one? Any love for that?
Nice.
So that, so
wanna-
Jeff, that's not a Stream Deck thing then?
That's not a Stream Deck thing, my friend.
You wouldn't have that on your Stream Deck? You'd save that?
No, sir. I could absolutely. I could pick a key and map my Stream Deck key to it and be able to absolutely tap on the Stream Deck. I put it on F1 and F2. I could put it on, I tend to put some of those keys that are Stream Deck specific to like F15, which isn't on my keyboard. And that way I'm not ever wasting the key for my main keyboard. But I love removing quit. I love those two little buttons because I cannot tell you how tired I am of clicking there or finding the wrong item is there. All right.
You should share
let's
as
see.
your keyboard preset.
No, because they're constantly evolving. Like all I do is I work and I change. I got one more for teachers or non-teachers in here. This is a very obscure resolve. Kevin, I'm sure, knows this one. Same thing with Warren, just from years and years and years of dealing in our nodes. Control Shift semicolon and single quote. Let's see if I got that right. Let me make sure. No, it's Alt. Yeah, there it is. Allows you to step from node to node on the keyboard. Right? And if you take a look down on your keyboard, let me get to an empty node there, right there. If you take a look on your keyboard, the keys I'm talking about are to the left. Now, I'm sorry for international keyboards, but it's Alt or Shift, Alt and Shift or Option Shift, semicolon and comma. And that's right next to the Enter key. Hey, Diego, my friend, I'm going to ask you for a key here. What's the key to the left of the semicolon key?
Oh, wait.
Right. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but you're going to work great for this. So you have the Enter key to the left of it. You have the single quote. You have the semicolon. What's that letter right there? L.
Hell yeah.
L for label. I have mapped on my keyboard Alt Shift or L for label. And so when I get to a node, because I want to label it, whether I'm teaching, whether it's for myself, I can just type the label in, hands on the keyboard, moving quickly from node to node, quickly labeling, rather than clicking, rather than right clicking, whether I'm a teacher, whether I'm building my master fixed node set for myself. My master said, I'm going to label them. I thought that would be another really great tip. How'd I do, Luke? How'd I do on time?
You did good. You did really good, and I think people are really heating up here for the monitor giveaway. Kevin, can you tell us a little bit about what kind of monitor we're giving away?
Yeah, this is it's another single cell monitor, but this one has 2,000 mini LED back zones. 2,000 mini LED back zones.
It also comes with Calvin software.
Yeah, so it has a maximum brightness of 1,000 nits. Supports HDR10 and HLG, PQ, etc., etc. But it has a built-in calibration probe that pops up out the bottom, much like the ISO, and it uses Kalman software that will auto-calibrate it at the touch of a button. So it's quite a special monitor. I've had a look at it, and It calibrates beautifully. I mean, SDR perfect, better than Delta One, and it does P3, it does HDR, PQ, it does HLG. So it's another one of these monitors. Because of the 2000 mini LED zones, it's an expensive monitor in that category. It's up near $5,000. It's our star price actually for the mixer. It's our most expensive prize.
Yeah, and people are flocking in 74.
Yeah, this is the one. I know a lot of people are going to be kicking themselves if they miss this. This is the one that a lot of people have been waiting for. I see Jay-Z is on the list there.
See if we can break 100.
There it is, Kevin.
There it is.
There's the one sitting on my desk. I was hoping to get quickly up. I was hoping to get the probe to come out, but I think I didn't know you were going to do it. It's just warming up as we speak.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, sorry, it does need to warm up. Yeah, no, it's a great monitor. It's a great monitor. 32 inches. It's good size for grading.
Big thanks to Dell for putting this in.
Absolutely, because this monitor's only been available for a month or two, I think.
Great.
Not very long anyway. And it's still in quite short supply. 94 going. I think we should break 100 on this one.
Yeah, we had 104 for Asus.
Oh,
a lot of people loving all your guys' tips, guys. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks.
Yeah, some
David.
great tips
Thanks,
there,
Diego.
everybody. Really appreciate that.
I think a lot of things that people aren't aware of or weren't using or didn't know about before. 101.
Yeah.
Correct. 100.
Okay, good. And so while the numbers are coming in, I just want to mention, actually, Greg is here. Are you around, Greg?
Hey, how we doing?
Good, Greg. So Greg is going to run a webinar next week on calibrating this monitor. Is that right?
I am. It's going to be posted on Facebook on the International Color Academy page, and we'll have a link to that. It'll be a Zoom session, probably 2 hours long, I'm guessing, by the time we go, from A to Z, start to finish on one.
And also, as soon as we're finished this prize giveaway, Greg's going to be doing some monitor calibration with us right here. So don't go away.
My Dell is actually sitting in the box behind me. It has a build date of November 2020, so it's brand new off the assembly line. And we'll be.
And we got 108 people. That's big. Let's run it.
Let's hit it.
109.
109. Right. So these are going to be crunchy ones.
All right. 110.